And right now it's time for that time when we have our special guest.
Tonight's special guest is writer and music producer Alan Galbraith. Alan was right at the heart of the baby boomer music explosion of the 60s and 70s, working as a record producer at EMI in Wellington. Alan is here today to introduce his brand new CD, Silverfox. We welcome Alan Galbraith as our special guest on The Beat Goes On. Alan Galbraith, welcome to The Beat Goes On.
Thanks, Gerard. It's great to be here.
You've just turned 64 last week. A lot of us still got books to write, mountains to climb, marathons to run,
Yes.
and
records
CDs to make.
That's right.
Not only is it a great looking album, but the music's fabulous.
Thank you.
Let's do a little bit now so they can know who Alan Galbraith is and what
I
it sounds
Thought
like.
I saw you as you walked home last night. Something was wrong, there was something not quite right. Was that a speck of dust or a tear in your eye? Falling down to the ground. Falling down to the ground. Falling down to the ground. It's no use sitting at home on your own, finding excuses for being alone. There's no point in watching the telephone or turning your face to the sky, waiting for the world to go by, waiting for the world to go by.
Oh, that is wonderful. How did you get to write such a wonderful track?
Don't let it get to
That particular song comes from a long time ago when I worked in England, and I don't want to drop names here, but I did some work with Rack Records, which was Mickey Most's label.
Yeah.
And he was my hero at the time. There was a guy recording in there called Duncan Brown, and recorded a song, and that particular riff that sits behind that song is something that Duncan Brown played, and I remember it just stuck in my head all of that time. We're talking, 72 here. It's a long time ago, but the riff stayed in my head, and every time I pick up a guitar, I started to play it. So one day I thought, I might as well turn this into a real song. So I have to say thanks, Duncan. I did nick the riff, but
What great guitar playing, and you're playing the guitar?
Yeah, and it's a thing that anyone who's watching who thinks of me as the lead singer in Sounds Unlimited or with the Real Thing or a singer in a cover, guitar was actually always my first love.
Oh, okay.
And it was I don't know how I became a singer in a band.
Let's start right back at the beginning.
Right.
Let's go right back. It was Nelson, wasn't it?
It was.
You were a Nelson boy?
Yeah, yes. I'm actually English born, but
English
I grew
born?
up in Nelson. Yeah.
We won't hold that against
No,
you.
it's not my
Alan.
fault.
When did you get to New Zealand?
1954.
What's your first memories of New Zealand?
Oh, it's a bit weird, really, because we lived in the country in England, and we moved to the country outside Nelson in Mahana, so it felt like the same place. Really, it didn't really feel a lot different. I didn't really feel any different until a bit later, when I used to actually abuse my mother, if you'll forgive the expression, for bringing me to this country. Because if I'd stayed in England, I probably would have been in the Rolling Stones.
Yeah,
Here I am sitting in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, exactly.
But that's life. No, I have great memories of Nelson. It was a great place to grow up.
So you loved music. You figured that out quite early on.
But there was
didn't
no
you?
music in the family.
Yeah. Oh, really?
No. When I showed a bit of interest in music, my father bought a record player, but up until then we didn't have one. There was nothing. There was the radio. That was it. And there was no one else in the family plays music. But I have no idea why I did it, but I just suddenly decided I had to play the guitar. I think I do know why, actually. It had something to do with girls. In fact, I remember it quite clearly, because I remember being at a school sports meeting one day and coming around the edge of one of the buildings, and there was a large crowd of kids standing around. I thought, what the hell's going on? I looked over there, and leaning against the building was this little Maori guy. He was a great little guy, and he was playing Susie Darling. The old Richie Valens.
Susie Darling.
That's the one. And the crowd was, open-mouthed around, and I thought, I got to
That'll
do
get
that.
the girls.
I got to do that.
Now, did you get the girl? Did it work?
I don't know. I don't know. We won't. I don't think we'll go there. But I was one of those people who, once I got the guitar, every day, you could not get me out of my bedroom. I was playing
Practicing,
it over and over and over again. I had no formal lessons, no training, none of this stuff. But I was just determined to learn to play this thing.
Now that has given you a great life. studio producer at HMV in Wellington,
Yes,
off
yeah.
to Australia,
Yeah.
produced for CBS in Australia. I mean,
It's been great. Yes, it was great. As I said, it did prevent me from getting wealthy, but, but it was a good ride along the way, and it was good fun, and a lot of things that looking back, I'm quite proud of. But then, but that lasted until end of the 70s when I was at CBS, and for some strange reason, I woke up one morning and said, I've had enough of this. And I literally walked out of CBS and said, that's it.
Yeah.
I had after sold the guitars, didn't do any, I wouldn't go near music. People would ask me to do musical things and I'd turn around and walk the other way. I just was
saturated.
not interested.
You had too much.
Yeah, I think it was almost like a kind of a meltdown, And so I was determined to find something else. And I roamed around Australia thinking about becoming a winemaker and whatever else there was to do. But I ended up coming back here actually and working in advertising, which is not a real job.
As the studio producer of HMV, which later were EMI,
Yes.
wonderful artists, Sharon O'Neill, you developed her, you developed Mark Williams. You had great success with Mark Williams, didn't
With
you?
Mark. And Mark was part of a project when I came back from England and went back to EMI. I decided what I wanted to have was a studio collection of musicians. So we put together a band called Rocking Horse.
Well
at
known,
the time.
yeah.
And they put me onto Mark Williams, and then we grabbed the Yandell sisters from Auckland, and we had this ensemble, this core of people. I said, right, all the sessions from now on, Rocking Horse are the rhythm section, the Yandell sisters are the backing vocalists. Mark was just the star of the show, but that held together for quite a while. And it was a great time. We did a lot of what I think is good stuff.
We look back at that magic time of the 60s. Magic, wasn't it? Music seemed to be, it was vibrating in the air. Is it the same today or is it different?
I think it's different, and it's hard to say because I'm not 19, but I get the feeling that there is so much music out there. There's something new being invented every day, and every time it's a new category of music. If you recall, I mean, there was pop music and there was classical music.
That's it.
And pop music covered everything.
Yes,
whether it was country flavoured or whatever it was just pop music.
And you had a clearly defined path. You made a great record, got onto the charts.
And people didn't define it by any particular style. But then, suddenly we have, we got heavy metal, and then we got death metal, and then we got some other kind of metal, then we got all sorts of R&B.
Rap, then it went to
and it's like, I don't know what it's all about, and I just wish it was just called, in fact, I think Alison Krauss said, it's just music. Don't try and define it, it's just music. Just enjoy it for what, and if you don't like that particular thing, don't not like anything in that genre, listen to everything.
Would you like to be born in today's world?
No, not really.
You're happy with the generation you ended up in?
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine, Bruce Lynch, a musician, this morning, and he said to me, he said we were, and his son was there, Andy, who plays in the Feelers, and Bruce said to me, he said, God, he said, we were so lucky to be born in the era that we were born. And I thought about it, I thought, you're absolutely right. It's different. I've got kids, I've got a 26-year-old son and a 23-year-old daughter, and I've watched them grow up in this particular era and thought, no thank you. No, I'd rather grow up in the era I grew up in. Things might have been harder in some ways, but in others they were a lot easier. The pressures on these kids now it's frightening,
So back to Silverfox.
Yes.
Wonderful album. If I can I just love the music. Now suddenly the germ of a new idea. What made you do it?
What made me do is I got back into playing guitar again in a band in Wellington, and it rekindled my interest in music after all this time. And so I thought, right now I just need to get a studio at home, and I had to play around. It was purely because I just wanted to do it. It's just for the fun, because you can do it so cheaply.
But you
now.
produce so many other people. You've been the producer. Something for yourself. Finally, you're going to do something for yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point, because in fact I would say, and I'm not trying to be negative about it, but throughout that recording career, but I never did what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? I started out as a guitar player and a singer in a band, and I was writing songs, and then suddenly I got into the record industry, the record business. I didn't like the business. I was a creative guy. I wanted to write and play the songs. And in the period I was producing, I could do that. When I worked with Mark, I would choose the material, we'd work it out together. I sang most of the demos, he would come and do the final. I was part of the process. But it became clear to me later on that I should have actually, at the point a much earlier point, I should have done my own thing. I should have kept going as a musician and a writer.
Yeah.
That's really where I belonged, you know, not in the record business as such. And I said to my wife, I'm just doing this for the fun of it.
Yeah.
I don't care if nobody ever hears it apart from you and me, because I get to the end of the day, have a glass of wine, go, I did that, I'm pleased with that, that's all that matters. Just the satisfaction of doing it.
If our viewers would love to purchase this wonderful recording, how will they go about it?
It's online on iTunes under Silverfox.
Yes.
It's also on www.amplifier.co.nz, the Amplifier website. In fact, this month, during May, it's a free download on Amplifier.
Oh,
so
wow.
there's no excuse.
Free download.
For not getting it.
Of course, we always have a special treat for our viewers. We give away 3 copies.
Right.
We need a question. What about the fact that you produced all Mark Williams records? What was 2 of the big hits that he had?
The 2 biggest hits by far were Yesterday Was Just the Beginning of My Life and It Doesn't Matter Anymore, the cover of the Buddy Holly song. They were the 2 biggest
Well,
hits.
let's make that the answer. Yesterday was just the beginning of my life. If you can put that in the subject line, email Gerard at The Beat Goes On with the subject line. You qualify, you will go into the draw, and we've got 3 of these wonderful, wonderful albums to give away. Alan,
thank you, Gerard.
wonderful to see you.
Thank you for having me. Lovely to
You're
talk to
a
you.
typical example of what The Beat Goes On is all about.
Excellent.
A baby boomer producing product.
Oh, yeah, we've all got it, you know, we can still do it.